welcome to Simply Made by Erin, my crochet channel. Today we're making a cute sunflower dish scrubby. If you missed a few weeks back, I started the series with a daisy, and then I'm gonna finish it with a poinsettia in a few weeks for Christmas in July. These work up really fast, about 20 minutes or less, and they use a nice scrubby yarn. So for the sunflower, they don't offer brown, so I use a charcoal color for the center, and I think it looks pretty cute as a sunflower. But obviously you can use any color you want. The non-traditional colors are really cute too. So all you will need is 100% nylon yarn. I use Stitch Soak Scrub. It's from Lion Brand yarn. And again, this is 100% nylon. It's a 4 medium weight, and I use 2 strands held together. So for the 2 strands held together, you can pull from the center and the outside of the skein, but I will say when pulling from the center, it does get a little bit tangled. So if you have 2 skeins, that's super helpful. But if you want to do it with one, you can pull from the outside and just get as much yarn as you need. It takes a very small amount of yarn, so you can weigh it or kind of estimate what you need if you're having trouble pulling from the center. So for the traditional sunflower, I use Cyber Yellow, and then for the center, it was charcoal. This color right here is called Chartreuse, and I think the other color I'm going to be using is Autumn Maple. I am out of yellow today. So there's the yarn. You'll also need a 6 millimeter crochet hook. I find this yarn, if you're using a traditional metal hook, it's kind of hard to see against the metal. The contrast of the white hook makes it a lot easier to see the yarn. Let me kind of show you. So I kind of recommend a white hook if you have it. And then a tapestry needle to weave your ends in. I've shared my blunt tip needle before, but it doesn't work well with this yarn. So just a regular tapestry needle works great. A pair of scissors, and then a flexible measuring tape to check your gauge. I didn't really add a gauge to this pattern. It's not super important. My finished sunflower measures about 4.5 inches across. So you'll just kind of want to check to make sure you're roughly around 4.5 after you finish. If you're a lot larger, you might need to tighten things up again. You do want kind of a tight stitch, so when you're scrubbing dishes, it's not too loose. This one's a little bit larger than the daisy, and it has a little bit more weight to it. So for those of you that thought the daisy was a little small, you'll probably like the sunflower a little bit better. And then a stitch marker is not required, but this yarn is kind of hard to see. So if you want to mark the first stitch of each round, you can grab a stitch marker as well. And then here's the daisy. I put it in these little cellophane bags. The daisy, I used a 4-inch bag, but the sunflower is a little bit bigger, so I got this 4.5-inch cellophane bag from Amazon. And you just put the scrubbies in, and it's a cute way to package them. And then I print these labels out. These are round Avery labels, and this is kind of what I put on them. So if you sell at a market or something, it's just cute packaging and people know what they are and how to wash them. I was playing around with some more packaging today that I thought might kind of look cute. So this will be for the poinsettia that I post in July. Anyway, I'm gonna get all set up and we're gonna start working on the center of the sunflower. Okay, so I have my 2 strands of yarn held together. This yarn, it says it's a 4 weight, but I find it to be a lot smaller. That's kind of how I feel anyway. So I did 2 strands held together just to make a sturdier scrubby. So you just need a tail long enough to weave your ends in, 6 or 8 inches. I always leave more than I need. And we're gonna start with a magic ring, also known as a magic circle. So I take the tail and wrap it around my finger twice. Then I insert my hook under all those loops. And then yarn over and pull up a loop and then chain 2. The beginning chain does not count as a stitch. Okay, now we're gonna work 10 half double crochet in the circle. So for half double crochet, you yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. I'm gonna go ahead and mark this just so you can see it better. This yarn, like I said, is a little hard to see. It is forgiving though, so it makes it pretty easy to make the flower. Because if you get into like a wrong stitch or an extra stitch, it's probably not gonna affect anything as long as your stitch count ends up being correct. Okay, so then 10 half double crochet total. So there's 1, let me show you a few more. So yarn over, insert your hook into the circle, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. Okay, I will say with this yarn, you don't want to work too tight. You kind of want it loose, and then you'll notice it flows off your hook. If you do it tight, it's harder to get your hook under the loops. So really just kind of do a nice even flow. I'm gonna finish the 10 half double crochet and I'll meet you and show you how we join this round. Okay, so we have the 10 half double crochet. Just pull the center tight. This yarn does not break very easily, so you can pull that center tight pretty easily and you don't have to worry about it breaking. And then we're gonna slip stitch right into that first half double crochet, so where I marked that stitch. So just insert your hook, make sure you get under all those loops, and then just slip stitch to join, just like that. Okay, now we are going to chain 1, and we're gonna work 2 half double crochet in each stitch around. So half double crochet in that first stitch, another half double crochet in that first stitch. Again, you can mark that first stitch if you need to. Okay, so there's 2, and then half double crochet in the next stitch. And another half double crochet in the next stitch. So this yarn, it is a little bit hard to see, but I find that I can see the stitches pretty easily, the top stitches that you work under. So it's not horrible. It's not like a fur yarn that's almost impossible to see, and you definitely get used to it. Okay, so I'm going to finish the half double crochet, 2 half double crochet in each stitch. You'll have a total of 20 stitches, and I'll meet you and show you how we finish off that center. Okay, so I finished that last stitch of round 2. You should have 20 half double crochets. I went ahead and cut a long tail, and we're gonna join with the invisible join. So thread the tail onto your tapestry needle, and then go ahead and remove your stitch marker. We're gonna work under that first stitch, so make sure you know where that first stitch is. So with your tapestry needle, from the front to the back of your work, under the front and back loops, you push the needle from front to back and just kind of pull gently. It looks kind of like this. Okay, and then you find that last stitch of the round, the last half double crochet, which would have been right here. Okay, and you want to work in the back loops only. So it's kind of hard to tell, but this right here would have been the front loops only, or is the front loops only. We're gonna find the back loops only. And remember, we have 2 strands of yarn, so you're gonna have 2 loops instead of 1 loop to work under. And again, this yarn is forgiving, so if for some reason you go under the wrong loops or the wrong stitch, you're probably not gonna notice. Okay, and then from the front to the back again, under that back loop only, you pull tight again. and then just kind of pull it, and it creates kind of a faux loop and a nice invisible join. And then you just weave your ends in. So this yarn is really easy to weave in, and I always like to go back and forth in the opposite direction 3 times to get my ends nice and secure. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that off camera, but just kind of weave it in just like you normally would until it's nice and tight. Go ahead and weave the center tail in as well, and then I'll meet you back here and we'll start on the sunflower petals. Okay, so my center is completely finished. For reference, mine measures about 2 inches across. So if you want to check your gauge, I would start there. Okay, so we are going to join our second color, and I'm using the orange color. Again, 2 strands held together. And we're gonna take our hook and find that first stitch of the round. Actually, you can enter it in any stitch you want. I always try to find that first stitch. So I think my seam, I think that invisible join was probably about right here. So I'm gonna go under both loops of that first stitch of round 2. And then we're just gonna wrap our yarn on the hook like that, and then pull up a loop. And then we're gonna weave this tail in later. You can kind of hold it off to the side with your other hand just to keep it kind of tight. And then we're gonna chain 2. 1, 2. Okay, so the first petal is gonna be worked into the same stitch. So we're gonna work all these next stitches right in this same stitch. So a double crochet, so yarn over, insert your hook into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay. The next stitch is a triple crochet, also known as a treble crochet. So you yarn over twice, insert your hook into that same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. Okay, and now this next stitch is called a picot. We're gonna do a chain 2 picot. So it's really easy. So you chain 2, 1 and 2, and then you slip stitch in the chain 1 from the chain 2. So you chain 1 and chain 2. We're gonna slip stitch back into the chain 1. If you can find the back hump of the slip stitch, try to work in there. If you can't, it is kind of hard to see, just slip stitch into that chain wherever you can get it. If you turn the work slightly, I know you probably aren't going to be able to see it with this yarn, but so if you turn the chain slightly, there's a little hump right here. That's called the back hump, and it just gives it a slightly nicer finish with this scrubby yarn. It doesn't really show. So honestly, this is the trickiest stitch of the entire pattern, but it's actually really easy. So just like that. That creates the little tiny point on the top of the petals. Okay, and now in the same stitch, we're gonna do another triple crochet. So yarn over twice, insert your hook into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. I'm gonna try to space these on my hook so you can see them a little better. Okay, yarn over, pull through those first 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the next 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. Okay, and then the next one is a double crochet. So yarn over once, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, just like that. Okay, and now we're gonna chain 2 and then slip stitch in that same stitch. So the first petal is created, and these petals do have a tendency to curl in. That's perfectly fine. That kind of gives it the nice texture, and you can see how it looks. You can flatten them out with your hand a little bit if you want. It doesn't. Okay, so now we're gonna skip the next stitch. Make sure you're skipping the correct stitch. So the leaves are kind of wide and it has a tendency to kind of cover that next stitch up. So kind of pull the leaf away and make sure you're working under that right, or not working under that stitch. You're gonna skip it. Let me show you. So this one right here, we're gonna skip that stitch and then we're gonna start working into that next one right here. Okay, so skip that and then slip stitch into the next stitch. And then basically we're gonna repeat that same petal design. So we're gonna chain 2, 1, 2, double crochet into that same stitch, and then triple crochet, yarn over twice, insert into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then again, that chain 2 picot. So chain 2, and then slip stitch into that chain 1. If you can find that back hump, great. Okay, and then a triple crochet again. And then a double, and then chain 2, and then slip stitch. Okay, the leaves will get pretty tight against one another, kind of crammed in there. That's perfectly normal. Okay, and then we just repeat that all the way around. So you skip the next stitch, slip stitch into the next stitch, and then repeat that same petal pattern. So a chain 2, double crochet, triple crochet, chain 2 picot. You can see after you get the hang of it, it goes really fast. Triple. Again, just kind of keep your tension loose and it will just glide right on your hook. Double, chain 2, slip stitch. Okay, so go ahead and repeat that all the way around. You'll have 10 petals total, and there'll be 1 stitch left at the end that you'll skip, and then I will show you how we join it. Okay, so I finished my 10th leaf. I have 1 last stitch, the slips to skip over. This right here was the invisible join. It looks kind of like a stitch, but you don't have to worry about it. And then I just slip stitch to that first stitch. So the first stitch where that first petal is, I just slip stitch right to the bottom of that. And then go ahead and fasten off. Pull that tail all the way through. And then you can just weave your ends in. So I'll show you a little bit how I do that, but I'll do most of it off camera. There's not really anything special here about how to weave your ends in, but I just kind of, where we slip stitch, I pull it tight and just kind of push my needle from the front to the back. And then I hide the second color kind of under the base of these petals. And again, I go back and forth 3 total times before I cut it off. Okay, I went ahead and finished weaving in off camera. And this is what the final product looks like. It's so cute. You can kind of adjust the leaves. I like mine to curl up, but you can make them kind of flat. And then you can take the little packaging. Like I said, I got the 4.5 inch bag for the sunflower. Has a little strip of sticky on the back. Just line that up. And then I put the little label on the back side, and I try to center it. That did end up turning out really cute, my new design. Let me zoom in a little bit. So there you have it. That is the back, and then the front, and a bunch of them packaged in a basket for your little stand or brick and mortar, wherever you're selling them, will look so cute. Anyway, if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. As always, the written pattern is free on my blog, linked in the caption below. I hope you guys have a nice day. Enjoy.